Hello and welcome to the Art Class Curator podcast. I am Cindy Ingram, your host and the founder of Art Class Curator and the Curated Connections Library. We're here to talk about teaching art with purpose and inspiration, from the daily delights of creativity to the messy mishaps that come with being a teacher. Whether you're driving home from school or cleaning up your classroom for the 15th time today, take a second, take a deep breath, relax those shoulders, and let's get started. Hello, everybody. It's Cindy Ingram. Thank you for joining me for the Art Class Curator podcast. Today on the podcast, I have Madalyn Gregory with me again to talk about another work of art. I love talking about works of art with Madalyn. So we ended up talking for an hour and a half when we recorded this episode. So I decided to break the episode up into two parts. So today we have part one, and then join me next Monday for the second half of our conversation. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is, I mentioned it on last week's episode, is that we are changing the name of the podcast. So right now it is the Art Class Curator podcast. Starting in January of 2022, it will be called You Need Art. And I'll explain a little bit more about the reason for the change on the first official episode of You Need Art. But until then, just know that when you see it show up in your podcast subscriptions, you'll see a new name starting in January. So just a warning there, we will be You Need Art. All right, here it is. Here is my conversation with Madalyn Gregory about the artwork of the artist Naudline Pierre. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the You Need Art podcast, formerly the Art Class Curator podcast. And my name is Cindy Ingram. And here I have with me Madalyn Gregory to have another art conversation. Hello, Madalyn.
Hello.
Okay, so before we start talking about the artwork that we're going to talk about today, we have some awesome news that we want to share with you. We have been friends for a very long time, probably. How old is your youngest kid? 10?
11.
Okay, we've been friends for 11 years.
Yeah, I was pregnant with my youngest whenever. Yeah.
That's how I always can easily know. And we have really enjoyed working together the last few years, and we've enjoyed doing these podcasts for you where we talk about art. So we have decided to branch off from this podcast and start our own podcast with just the two of us. And we're calling it More Wonder, Please.
Yes. I'm so excited because I just love having conversations with you and all the weird tangents that we go down and connections that we make. And it's always such a delight to do that with art, but to be able to do that and jump off from other places is really exciting too.
Yeah. So she still will be a regular on this podcast. And so we talk about not just art over there. We've had a few episodes we've recorded already and more to come, but we have, what would we do if we were God for a day and stuff like that. So just kind of random things we're wondering about. And we got the name from, I was reading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she was writing about wonder at one point in the book, and she said, "More wonder, please," in it. And that line really stuck with me. And we started to talk about podcast titles, and that sort of came up. But I think it really does encapsulate everything that we want to achieve in that podcast, which is more wonder.
It truly does. And it feels very full circle life moment for me too, just because a word that I've used for years in my own writing is wanderlust, which is usually wander with an A for, loving to travel and experience new places. But I always used it with the O because I love wondering about things and being excited and enchanted by the universe. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you can check that out at any podcast player. Just type in More Wonder, please, and you will find us. Okay. So today we are going to do another art conversation with you, and we have decided to choose one that we recently saw in person. And we were both just totally delighted by this exhibit that we happened upon and want to share with you. So the artist is Naudline Pierre, and me and Madalyn go to the art museum almost every other week. And our plan, like the last Friday, was to go to the Crow Museum and the Nasher in Dallas. And we just happened to park at the Dallas Museum of Art. And we just kind of looked on our phone, like to see what they had. It wasn't even the plan to go there. And we saw this exhibit and decided we needed to go there too. So we did 3 art museums in one day. This was definitely the highlight for me. Well, actually, there was a lot of good art that day.
It really was.
Oh, really good. Okay, so let's do it.
Okay.
We didn't even pick one artwork. There was an exhibit room of probably maybe 10 paintings in that room.
Yeah, I think it was exactly 10.
Yeah, and then there was one in another area, but really incredible. So do you want to just share your experience of walking in and what you noticed?
Yeah. Okay, so like a lot of exhibits, it had, the artist's name and some text about the exhibit outside, which usually I might skim it. And if I'm interested, I'll come back to it because I don't want to be influenced, but I was so enraptured by what she had put. And then also, we kind of gotten a tiny preview of the art before. So I was like, yeah, I want to know. And the exhibit was called What Could Be Has Not Yet Appeared, which I could talk about that title for a long time.
Totally.
And yeah, I don't know if I necessarily want to read it, even though it is really good. And I took a picture of it. But okay.
I think the first line is worth reading, which is, what is it to be expansive, to be multiple, to be contradictory, to live in the fullness of possibility?
So good.
Oh, so good.
The right words in the right order. So good.
Yeah.
And okay, so since we're not talking about a specific artwork, all of the artworks feel, and I believe were intended to be, very narratively connected. And there's familiar faces in several of the paintings. But there's a lot of nudity. I will say that off the bat. But there's one human figure in particular that appears in many of the paintings that is nude and in different colors, and they're all very bright. There's some paintings were very bright, almost neon colors included, and others were darker, and some had both. I'm not doing
You're doing a fabulous job here.
But okay, so there was the human character, but then there were also a lot of winged characters presented in these paintings. And I guess I would say the closest analog for most of them were angels, though I feel like some of them looked more bird-like or perhaps like guardians. But her use of light is just fantastic. I feel like we're going to have to at least zero in on the specifics to really talk about them, but they all, maybe you can help me with the language here, but all of the backgrounds or the settings were very, they were nondescript. Some of them were almost like alien or otherworldly, but it gave me a feeling of like a spirit world, I'd say.
Yeah. To me, they seem very much like a new version of a Baroque painting. Like in Baroque, Italian Baroque, like you think of like Caravaggio or Gentileschi, like they're very like closed in that you don't have a lot of background. They're kind of really intimate and cropped. They have like really dramatic postures and emotions and poses. They have a religious bent or like a spiritual bent. I get more spiritual from this than like God, but in the Baroque, it was all about Catholicism. And then you also have, like in Baroque, is a dramatic lighting. So like highlights on some people, like some of the figures almost feel like they're glowing, which is kind of something that they did in Baroque. And then the backgrounds are really sort of dark and plain, which is what they did in Baroque too. At the time, did not see the Baroque thing at all. But now that I guess because I have a computer monitor and I have like 6 of the images all together, I'm like, oh shoot, these are Baroque, but with neon colors and
Yeah,
like a little bit less detail.
yeah, like there's some pieces too, whenever you're talking about Baroque, where around like the angel figures or even around the human and one of them, there's like the golden halo effect happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing they did in Baroque was they would take the not to give you like a full art history lesson here, but they one of the reasons why Baroque art is the way it is because they had the Protestant Reformation, and the Catholics were trying to pull people back in through the use of the art, and so they would put like everyday people into their paintings rather than these like beautiful like Renaissance people like you would see before. And that's what I felt when I looked at these paintings is I felt like I was her. Like I felt like the main figure that was in all of them. Like I saw myself in there. And that was kind of one of the goals of Baroque painting too, was like to put the viewer into the painting and give the viewer these experiences to move them emotionally so that then they would be Catholic. But that's probably not this artist's goal. But
I think it might be related too, though, like not maybe not the religious aspect of it, but like the humanity aspect of it, and seeing everyday people and even I would say maybe marginalized people put in these spiritual like settings where they're being cared for when they're going through trials and tribulations. Yeah, that feels very relevant.
Yeah, so they're so cool. So I think we probably should pick one because it's really hard to talk about them as a whole.
It is.
Do you have a favorite that you want to talk about?
That's really hard because I think I have 3, 4 favorites.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but okay. I think maybe maybe the ones with more characters in them are a little more open for interpretation there. I think the one I was most initially drawn to was Closer Still. But then I also was really drawn to, let's see, Hold On, Hold Tight. I believe, well, no, it was Hold On, Hold Tight. I'm sorry, these pictures are not in the correct order. I'm going to just describe them. The one where the figure is being carried by like the completely black angel figure.
Yeah. That one's Hold On, Hold Tight.
Okay. And then the one where the human figure is falling and like all of the creatures are like coming to, it looks like perhaps rescue.
Okay. I love those two, and I think they're good to talk about. And I think they're the same picture at 2 different times. So
yeah,
one is
yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the one where they're falling, and then if we want to go to the other one. Okay, so the artwork that we've just chosen, then you've got to see our process there. It's called Lest You Fall from 2019. Again, the artist is Naudline Pierre. And in this painting, we have a woman who is like orange, like bright orange woman who's nude, upside down, but falling. So her head is at the bottom and her feet are in the air. She's falling, and at the bottom, there's these black flames and also outlines of flames in pink. The background is like a neon pink, neon yellow, orange, and green. And then there are flying angels around her, what look like angels. They're winged. Yeah, they're people bodies, but with wings. And they are sort of, looks like they're catching her. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different angels and of different colors. And then there's also a bird who is grabbing her hand as well. And from the bird, there's these like little blue,
almost like an upside down crown of like spikes.
Yeah, it's like light rays, but they're blue, kind of. Did I describe it good enough? Did I miss anything?
I think you did a grand job. I will say, like composition wise, I mean, the human falling is definitely like front and center, but the angels are almost coming in as like a curve, like from the top left corner of the painting and like surrounding down like the right side of her body.
Yeah, it's like one big swoosh, and
Yeah.
it's like she's falling, but you don't get the feeling that she's falling quickly. It feels like the state of her fall, it's like a feather kind of wafting down to the ground. It's almost like she was falling, but then they caught her, and now they're sort of gently escorting her to the ground. That's what I
see. That's
feel.
interesting, because I was going to ask you what you saw, because I feel like if I look at different areas, I feel differently about like how fast she's going. I think because the background colors kind of a little bit, or they feel like, you know how whenever you put a picture on Instagram, this is weird, but if you put it on the stories, it'll like spread whatever color is at the edge to the end of the story. It's kind of like that, like the angels are like glowing off, and like that's the background color. And so whenever I look at like the green into like yellow area, it almost feels like the ground to me, especially because the angel in the top left corner like has shadow beneath them, and so it feels like they like just caught her in the nick of time to me. But then looking more at like the orange and the pink areas, like it feels like she still has like a long way to go, and I do get that like slow descent feeling from it. So
yeah, I can see that. I hadn't thought of that as the ground, but now that I can see that.
It's very nebulous.
Yeah.
Because it really is just color. Like there's no landmarks or anything. The only other thing going on is the flames, which, I mean, they clearly look like flames to me, the black in both the drawn, but also it reminds me of like hair tendrils, like upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I am very curious, like, is she falling toward danger, or is like yeah, what is she falling toward? That's what I want to know. Like, what happened?
Yeah, because when I saw this at the museum, I don't think I saw the flames. Like, this feels like new information. The flames do. And I'm like, did I just completely miss that? Another thing I just noticed too is like some of the angels are blending into the background. Like they're almost transparent. Like the leg of one of them is like, you can see the background behind it. And then this other one too, it's like they're not there and they're there at the same time, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is. There's almost like, there's a quality to it that almost looks unfinished, I think, too, because the angel that's like doing most of the catching, like the whole body and wings are brown, but then the face, like you said, is transparent, and you see like the orange coming through from the background underneath. And then the flames that are not black just look, kind of drawn there. And like, yeah, I'm just kind of in wonder of it all at the moment. But I do have, I have a lot of theories about the benevolence or not of the winged creatures and of that bird especially.
Yeah. My initial feeling when I saw this was this feeling that of the invisible support of the universe. So it felt very woo to me. It felt very much like, I had a coach one time who said, everything is fine. Everything has always been fine, and everything will be fine. And he would say that. And I would always take a lot of comfort from that, because like, yes, bad things happen in the past or whatever, but I'm fine. I ended up okay. And then I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. But then it's like, there's
that's
also,
until it's not.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, but what if, like there are things that are not fine. Like, and there are people who like, those are the stories that go untold. Like, the people who die because the things weren't fine. And what about them? They're not fine and won't always be fine. So like in my head, when I was looking at this painting, like I kept going back and forth and like fighting myself on that. And it's funny. I think that's probably why I didn't want to see the flames, because I just wanted her to be fine.
Well, I mean, I think perspective matters a lot whenever you're talking about something like that, because I mean, we have such a limited scope of perception in our lives as humans, which is something we talked about on More Wonder, Please. And it does, like, on a cosmic level, is everything okay? Like, we get to see such a snapshot, if even that. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel that incongruity with you, because it both feels true and feels like an incredibly like privileged cop-out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, where do you draw the line and take like, I what I think probably the answer is that I just allow myself to be comforted by the notion that the universe has my back and maybe try not to think about it too hard. Then it's like, I don't know. That's not good either.
Yeah. I mean, goodness knows complacency can be a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's interesting to me that is where you went, and just proving again that art meets you where you are. To me, this very much felt like, somebody that was like, her body is relaxed, almost looking like, even though, she's upside down and like her legs are flying and there's even like flames coming off of her foot, like there's a gracefulness to it and like almost like an acceptance to her position.
Like a surrender.
Yeah, like a surrender. And, it's fun. I mean, we always have this conversation every time we look at art with a person of some sort in it. I'm not entirely convinced it's a woman. I mean, they have the, I guess, the pubic area that you would most closely associate with cis women, but then also, like, I don't know, like the chest is flat and the haircut is short. And I think especially whenever you're playing with the themes of like the divine and the universe and, guardian angels, if you want to call them that, and like, I don't know, like, I feel like I just see like the personhood of this person.
Yeah, because when I said woman, I was like, in my head was battling back and forth, because I was like, well, I don't know. But I think is what I was responding to, especially, is like all of her paintings feel like they're about the same person. Like it looks like the same person is on all of them. And then in some of them, her chest isn't flat, but then some of them it is. Her hair is short in all of them.
But I think it also gets back to what you were saying about like inserting everyday people into like celestial settings. Like, I feel like I connect with that person, and so it feels more like me, and I'm a woman. So, but I feel like if, a man was standing in front of this and they were open to it, they could see themselves in that person too.
Yeah. And that gives me a whole other side conversation, which we probably don't have to have right now, but how women in society are used to putting themselves into the role of the man, because that's for a long time that like the men were always like the protagonists of movies and TV shows and books.
And they still largely are.
They still, yeah. And so like we're kind of used to doing that. And I think that's one of the reasons why movies keep being put out to where men are the main characters, because men can't imagine seeing themselves as a woman, but then women are just used to it the other way because we were kind of forced to. I want to
that happens.
Go
yeah.
ahead.
well, I was going to say, I think that definitely happens with race too, and why the conversations around representation are so important. And I think that's definitely a piece of the art too, based on, what the exhibit said. But yeah, it is really interesting. I think, just to go into pop culture for a minute, like whenever the new Star Wars movies came out, like that was a big thing on the internet. Like a lot of fans of the originals that, let's just say they were men for the most part, were very upset that it was, a female led story that was going to come out. And I mean, I see that over and over again. And the people that want to get upset about that do seem to just have a failure of imagination in putting themselves in the role of what it might be like not to be you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That was, I feel like that could be a whole other thing. Maybe that's our part 2 on More Wonder, Please. We'll let you know if that happens.
I want to talk about the bird.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so to me, I don't know a lot about birds, but it looks like a dove.
Yeah, I think I don't either, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, doves are represented in a lot of art and things, and that looks like a dove to me. I could be wrong. Which, they're usually symbols of like peace and, purity and stuff like that. And I really don't know how to read what this bird is doing, because it's not sitting on her hand. It's like floating down with her. The wings are outstretched, but I don't know. To me, like, I almost wonder if the blue streaks underneath the bird are like representing that it's not flying, like it's coming down to, like, it's captured as well. But the beak is on one of her fingers, and there's like a little like spark of like, it's lighter than the rest of her skin tone. Yeah, like I just have the picture and I'm having to zoom in quite a lot, but
I didn't notice that.
It almost looks like a cross or maybe a cut. Like the skin tone is different than the rest of like the orange yellow that is happening. And I'm like, part of me wants to interpret that as almost like a gift, or like something that the bird is giving to her. And part of me like feels like it's a wound. Like I keep going back to that scene in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets where Fox the Phoenix flies down and like cries on his wound, and so he gets healed. Like, is this a healing thing, or is it like, I don't know. I see a lot of duality in the entire artwork, really. And like, yeah, I feel like maybe that is representing whatever wound, put her into free fall, and the bird is coming to heal it. Maybe.
Wow. I did not see that spark thing at all. So, or like the little white thing on her finger. So that's really cool. I zoomed way in. And as a reminder, we will put the image of this artwork up in the show notes so you can see it for yourself, but don't look at it while you're driving, if you're listening to while you're driving. To me, it looks like the bird is is grabbing her finger with its beak and helping keep her from falling.
Oh, I like that too.
And I do think I think that the blue under the bird, to me, gives it like a holier look, like it's like a divine bird. But also I think you're right. It creates a little bit of an upward momentum. So it's like shows that the bird is trying to pull up rather than go down. So I think it's also just balance. Like there's blue there and then there's blue on the other side of the painting. So like if there were no blue on the left side of the painting, it would look weird. So it's like there's also like a function thing to it, which I love about art too. It's just like if that blue wasn't there, the whole painting would be thrown off balance.
I love that interpretation that the bird is like trying to pull her up. And I think it's twofold. It's because, I mean, here are these 4 other winged creatures coming in to grab her and to hold her. And then, this little bird is not going to make that much of a difference, right? But like, is still doing what it can. And
Oh,
like, that is incredibly like powerful to me because, we're all just one person in this world. But also, I mean, if that is what the bird is doing, then the bird is cutting her hand. And like, again, I don't know, I'm seeing duality because like it's so easy in life when you're trying to help to end up hurting.
yeah. And then what level of hurting is acceptable? Like you do have to get hurt
Mm-hmm.
to save yourself. Like to, if you like to be human is to have pain.
Yeah.
So
To love is to give someone the ability to hurt you. I mean, it's other
yeah,
things too, but it is that.
yeah. So I think it's a trade-off. The person doesn't get saved, or the person gets a little painful finger, a
Yeah.
scar from the situation. Then they'll have a scar on their finger.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's part of the reason that I think we were drawn to these images on the whole was because that is a universal experience to feel like you are in free fall, to be hurt even by someone you love or someone that's trying to help, to, you know, like like it's a beautiful thought that there are these creatures or the universe or God or whoever is out there to help you and to be there for you. But at the same time, like, can she see them? Like, can she feel them catching her?
Mm,
Like, I just, like, I think there's a beauty in that, but that is really lonely. Like, if that is all you have, that is not enough. We still need each other. We still need the real world or the physical world, I guess.
yeah, I think that she doesn't see them
Yeah.
because I'm looking at some of the other ones, which I'll again put on the show notes or on artclasscurator.com. Like she doesn't in any of them, she's not looking at them.
Yeah.
She's not, they're interacting with her, and she's not necessarily interacting with them in most cases, I think.
Yeah. I mean, she is being held,
Yeah.
several of them, but the only ones where, at least to me, it looks like she's like the only one that I feel like she's knowingly holding on, the other person doesn't have wings.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm doing in my head right now, and I don't know how to say this or ask this or anything, but I'm trying to, I guess what I'm trying to do is like put myself into the position of someone in this situation who is falling. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to like remember times in my life or whatever that I felt this way. Like what I imagine that to feel like.
It's hard to surrender.
Yeah. Like it feels so lonely. This is one of those times where my body can feel it, but I can't explain it. So it's like I'm having a hard time getting these words out because that just happens to me sometimes where it's just like, oh, I can feel this, but I can't put words to it. But to me, it's like, when you're in that sort of state when, things are collapsing and things are really hard and maybe you're going through a depression or just something really hard in your life and it feels so isolating, but then like it's really hard to me personally to feel like I am being supported.
And it's kind of like, but I see other people. The guy that keeps popping in my head is one of my friends from high school who had died of cancer when he was in his late 20s. And before he passed, we were Facebook friends, and I would see he posted a lot of stuff, religious things, and he was really deeply connected to his faith during that time in his life. I mean, he always was a religious person, but like during his cancer, that was such something that kind of kept him going. And so like that's kind of what I see in this situation is like, is you're looking for something outside of yourself to hold on to. And it's like a grasping, but then she doesn't look like she's grasping. I don't know.
Well, I think maybe faith has always been a difficult concept for me for a variety of reasons. But, looking at it through that lens, I do think that if I had to imagine what faith looked like, what like good, deep, true faith feels like, maybe that's what it feels like, is just being able to surrender and being able to trust and not being attached or not supposing you already know what the outcome is going to be. Maybe you get caught, maybe you smash into the ground, but being at peace with that.
Yeah, I kind of prickled a little bit when you were talking, because it may not prickled and like just triggered, in that my anxiety got triggered a little bit, because I tend to want to control everything. I want to control all the outcomes, and I want to control my part in it. And I feel like my part is bigger than it actually is. And I feel like I'm responsible for a lot of things I'm not actually responsible for. And so like the idea of just surrendering and being supported fully, like that feels impossible to me to even fathom.
I 1000% understand everything you just said, because even the thought of it was a bit like, but what I actually thought of whenever I looked at this artwork, and especially now looking at it again, I feel is related to that, which is that, I've been doing a lot of work, depending on who you are listening to this is either going to sound like the best thing or the worst thing. I don't know. But I have been doing a lot of work, trying to like heal my inner child and like get at those core wounds. And, a lot of the time, whenever you look into stuff like that, people will talk about your shadow self, which I think is I think that came from Jung. I don't remember, but I see a lot of those elements here, and I think maybe that's why I saw so much duality, because I think that idea is around us all the time, the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark. Even in science, there's matter and antimatter. Like there's all of these things that happen, and whenever I looked at her, like the far more comfortable idea, rather than it being about faith or about religion, it was the idea of, surrendering to what you actually need and who you actually are, and that isn't like, I feel like now, like the black flames tendrils, like it does feel like that's the shadow. That's what you could fall into. And I don't know, there's something too about being raised up, and like the whole idea of like a higher being and these angels and all of that, of recognizing deeper truths about yourself and about your not even your potential, but just, the better angels of your nature. And I don't know, I think it's much easier for me to imagine like the creatures and the angels being almost parts of her or parts of her story that are, she's finally letting in, and that's what's going to save her from the shadow.
Oh, Madalyn, that was beautiful. Better angels of ourselves, I think is what you said. That was so good. Or better, what? I don't remember, but it was so good. But yeah, when you look at it through those lenses, like then all of a sudden I was like, well, what if, this one angel looks like the same hair as her, but it looks like a younger, so maybe that's like a younger version of her or them, or maybe it's like a ancestor, or it's like, a grandmother, or maybe, or it is all of the parts of her. One of the things I've been studying recently with just this new program I'm in is internal family solutions, and how within you have multiple selves, and there's like kind of one higher self, but then you've got like I've got this like perfectionist self that's in there that I kind of have to talk down sometimes when she gets upset, and like there's all different parts of me. And so I like seeing that. But then I also, as you were talking, started to think again, because we kind of asked this question at the beginning, but we haven't really talked about it, which was, where is she falling from and where is she falling to? And like, what's the story? And I started to think, what if her falling is not a bad thing? Like, what if she is falling into her greatness, like into like something better and good and exciting, but it's scary, like you take a leap and you take a risk and it's really scary, but then like on the other side, really amazing things happen.
Yeah.
So maybe that's happening.
It's like a trust fall, but
yeah,
you're trusting yourself, you're trusting the universe, or you're trusting, like you have to. Yeah, I think that's one thing that I strive for in my life, is to get to a place and be in a place as often as I can, because I don't think it's ever possible to do it all the time, but where I am truly listening to my body and to, my intuition, and trusting that process. And that's both scary and freeing.
Yeah, 100%. That's really a main focus of my life too, is doing the same thing, because I think for many, many years, I let other people's thoughts and feelings and opinions be the guiding force. And then I always would second guess or overthink, or any opinion that I had or any goal I had, I would talk myself out of, but then every time I've like fully listened to my intuition and fully trusted like what came out of me, or those are the times in my life that were the most full and successful and soul filling.
Mm-hmm.
So learning to do that more. All right, that is all for today. Like I said in the intro, we are breaking up our conversation into 2 parts because we ended up talking for a full hour and a half about her artwork. So we will resume our conversation next Monday on the Art Class Curator podcast. And another reminder that the podcast will soon be called You Need Art, starting in January. All right, I'll see you again next week. When was the last time you did something only for you? Something that put you in touch with your innermost thoughts and feelings? Something that filled your bucket and inspired your spirit? Too many of us can't remember the last time we took the time to do something like that. A lot of people have never done it at all. But that's exactly what the Art Connection Circle is all about. If you want to seek a deeper connection with yourself and with the human spirit, the circle is for you.
Learn more about what the Art Connection Circle has to offer you and how to join at artclasscurator.com/circle.